What's going on, guys? So we made it back out to Mission, our favorite spot at White Spot. Little checkpoint that we always hit up before we go, but car made it out fine. Had a little of a scare moment when went wide open throttle and forgot to turn the air conditioning off, and it adds like a ton of fuel. So, but even without the air conditioning, it still seems a little richer than yesterday, but it feels pretty good. So we're just gonna go grab some drinks and then get this thing in line and get it all teched in, and yeah, get ready for the first hit. Okay, so we just got through tech. A couple new rules that I got hung up on. Apparently you're not supposed to have fuel lines too long like this, but because it's not running fuel through it, it shouldn't be a problem. But anyways, car is feeling pretty good. It's a lot emptier than we thought it was gonna be. I thought it would be packed today, but pretty empty, so we're just kind of waiting. I'm not sure when the races are going to start. I thought they'd be started already, but anyways, just going to do a quick once over, check tire pressure, get our window paint on and ready to go, and then yeah, make a hit and see where it's at. All right, boys, so they just called up our class. I am in Dominator class, or domestic class, I guess, because I got a V8. Anyways, a little nervous. I'm just kind of excited. Not sure what this car is gonna do. We'll see. I am nervous, I'm not gonna lie. And it's hot as hell in here.
Hoping they don't rub.
Yeah. I was just looking, I was like, that's a lot of size.
I haven't used these ones yet.
Okay. Yeah, maybe at the launch.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Got the big old meats on this car. Okay, boys, we're up pretty soon here. All right, so I'm right lane. Yeah, right now, at this point, I'd like be looking at my mirrors like, okay, I'm gonna do a burnout. Dude, they have a guy here that'll tell you what to do. Great. All right, I'm gonna try and tree them just for fun. That felt good. Oh. Yeah, fucked up this 1-2. I felt like I was gonna leave it, and then, oh well, we'll see what it did. I want to see a mile an hour. Yeah, it bogged. Dang. Whew. It launched good. I want to see what the 60 foot is. I don't get it. Oh, 14.51 at 96 miles an hour, exactly. 9.3 to the 8th. 207 60 foot. So if we get that second gear, man, it's still not where it needs to be. What a disappointment. All right, well, back to the drawing board. Okay, boys. Get ready here. So yeah, game plan is we pretty much left it in drive the whole time. We didn't, wasn't constantly putting into neutral. So hopefully sitting on the converter a little bit has warmed it up. I'm not sure if that's the issue, but I do know that the transmission typically does not get very warm. Even after some thrashing, it never really hits 160 degrees. So I'm hoping that is what is causing it. We'll see. Been sitting on the converter, it should be nice and warm. I'm gonna shift a little early, probably around 6,000. And yeah, I didn't even look at the air fuel last time. Gotta remember to do that. All right, me and the Ranger. The only car here that I probably even have a remote chance against. Although who knows what he's got, maybe he's on nitrous. Get gapped by a Ranger. Oh, this guy almost failed. Felt pretty good. Car also threw a slip light right when I did the burnout, so oh, I double balled him, my bad. Yeah, still didn't go into second properly. It's better, didn't bog. Well, we fucked up that Ranger. Dang. I shifted really early and no slip lights were on. I think the warmer the trans, the better. Because that definitely felt better. And it feels better now, even like as it's shifting into third and fourth. Well, let's take a look at, oh yeah, let's take a look at our slip. $14.52, literally exactly the same. Okay, well I think we're gonna let it cool down, like all the way down, let it get to nighttime kind of thing. Dang, 21460 foot, 936 to the 8th, 14.52 at 95.6. Okay, so me and Brody just went for a quick drive. We just went up this little bridge that we can take a blast over, and let it launch, and I put it into drive this time, so instead of manually shifting it or even having it in M mode. And it definitely doesn't shift as fast as what it does when it's like properly shifting, but we're having a problem where it's bouncing limiter. I'm not sure if it's electronic or if it's because it's too cool, or I'm not sure, because I left it sitting on the converter. You know, I didn't put it in neutral or anything, so it should be relatively warm by the time I go up. It does a burnout. I mean, it's got enough time to really kind of have heat in the transmission, and it still hits limiter, so, and that kills our momentum, right? So we're at like the 14.5 mark, same mile an hour, so I think if it shifts it should do a little bit better. But right now we're basically where we were at square one, right? 14.5. $14.5, 96 miles an hour kind of thing. So we're gonna do a burnout, and then we're gonna put it into drive, and we're gonna let it shift on its own. I feel like I've done this before, but I also think that I might just be making that up. Because I kind of have like a routine in my head that I just go back to. Like I'm supposed to be looking at the air fuel to see if that's helped or not, because I reset the battery, I unplugged it for like 10-15 minutes, because it doesn't make sense. Like we saw the video yesterday, the car is doing like 13.3, 13.1 to 1 air fuel, and then at around 4,500 it goes down to like 12.7, 12.8, which is ideal. That's exactly where I want it. But now it's like 12.4 at the leanest, 12.1. I saw 11.9 for a split second. Okay, boys. I can't see shit. These people always take forever. Oh, it's the Ranger again. He wants another race. That felt good. Let's go, baby. Come on. Let's go. That felt good. I didn't let it shift on its own. Like I said, I got a routine, man, and it's hard for me to break it. Oh, man. Left that Ranger in the dust, brother. These guys got the best job in the world. Shoot, okay, come on, be more than a 14.28. It wasn't a hard shift into a second, but it felt good. I think the heat in the trannies are an issue, man. Because that worked. That worked. That felt exactly how it felt on the street. Now, to be honest, I shifted super early, like 5,900 RPM, and it shifts softer. Like, okay, so if everything is ideal, if everything's working properly, and I shifted at 6450, it bangs into second gear hard. You can see it in the previous videos. Like, I'll mention it every time because it's like it's hard. And it didn't do that, but it didn't bog. It kind of did the slow shift, but it did the slow shift quickly, if that makes any sense. Let's get the app, let's go! Honestly, just having it not balance limiter is enough for me. Obviously we want to get a new personal best, but man, having that fucking limiter bog is so annoying. I don't know how to use this app. I'm having a boomer moment. Come on, 14.37 at 96 miles an hour. It literally will never do anything but 96 miles an hour. 14.37. That is like literally exactly what it did last time. Okay, so someone in the pits sold me like apparently like 15 liters of E85. He put more than I thought he was gonna put in. So I have no idea what this air fuel is gonna be. I gotta remember to look at that. I'm just doing my little torque converter warm-up thing where I'm just kind of bouncing, warming up the transmission. Burnouts have been really good today. All right, that felt nice. Let's have some fun, boys. Nice and cool out. We got some ethanol, some regular pump swill E68 in there. Shout out to whatever your name was with the super fast Volkswagen GTI. Appreciate that. All right, let's do it. Let's have fun. Hee hee hee. Boys, we gave it our all. Yeah, I should have been warming up the transmission from the very get-go, I think. I'm going to put that input speed sensor that I had in there. We're going to, I'm going to do some real street testing, full 8th mile heads. I got to confirm it before I make the trip out here. It's a bit of a voyage. And it is disappointing to just run the exact same time as last time. Literally 14.37 at 96 miles an hour. Exactly. Like, come on, man. Come on. It feels so much better. It's ripping. But at the track, it just can't put it together. So we're calling it there. I know it's not the 13. It's good data. 60 foots feel good. When I get this thing sorted, it's gonna run nice, but it's not there yet. I need more work to do. I'm gonna figure out what's clunky in the front end, and yeah, do some transmission work. I don't know what it needs, but we'll figure it out. But that's gonna do it for this one, boys. Spring opener, still going 14.37s. Fuck. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Several days later.
What's going on, guys? We are back at Canadian Tire. I got the laptop, doing some testing on the car. I gotta make this video because it is a little important. I think I've been putting out a little bit of misinformation, but let me just give a little bit of a backstory. So I haven't released the racing video, but we went to the track on Friday and it launched fine. Like it didn't have any traction issues, but it would hit limiter going into second. And this happened, you know, in the past. I attributed it to the timing issue, because when the timing issue happened, the gears it would shift really weird. But yeah, so I've done some research. I just want to give a little bit of a backstory, but this video is kind of important because I made a video on the TCM a while ago and I got a lot of response. Not a ton of views, but the people who watched it reached out, and there was probably like 4 or 5 of these TCMs on eBay, and when I made the video they were gone instantly. People jumped on them because I think people who are trying to drift these cars, that's like a huge problem, is they get higher into the RPMs and then they hit limiter and it will shift, right? Which is, it can be dangerous, especially if you're tandeming or you're pushing it to the limit where you're getting close to stuff. You really want control of, what RPM, what gear you're in. So it was a huge revelation for us, right? It changed a lot of things. I put the TCM in and the shifts would come in much faster. It didn't really have this delay in throttle. Like, you would hit the gear selector and sometimes it would shift way too hard. And sometimes it would shift nice and fast. And I just assumed, right? I'm not an expert in this stuff. I just assumed that the later models that came with this transmission had just been tuned differently. And to my credit, the reason why I thought this is because the transmission that came after this, the 7AT, it behaves like this much more than my transmission did. The shifts would come in really fast. My girlfriend had a G37, and I definitely noticed it, that when you left it in drive, it would always prioritize higher gears, and I think a lot of people found that annoying, especially in the V6. It doesn't really have the torque to kind of pull the torque converter up, so you'd be constantly trying to downshift to get power to go around people and stuff like that. And a lot of people would just drive them in sport and just manually shift them. So that's why I thought that the TCM would just update the shifts, and it also got rid of auto upshift, which was, realistically, I'm never going to use that. I'm trying not to hit limiter, and I never drift the car. When I do a burnout, I'm still using the water box. Like, I'm not doing a dry hop where I really need momentum. The RPM sit at like 4,000 RPM, and that's fine. I never hit limiter in a burnout, so it really wasn't necessary for what I'm doing. And I also think that a lot of this is just me changing things for the sake of changing things, right? We're dealing with a car that has no support, no aftermarket stuff. And so when I found out that you can change the TCM, I just went ahead with it. I just bought this thing on eBay. It was cheap. It was $50 or something. And slapped it in the car and said, hey, look, the shifts are different. Well, after the day at the racetrack, I really went down the hole on these transmissions. So I've been reading, 20 different forums on 350Z auto guys. I'm watching guys who are spraying nitrous on autos, trying to find out if they've ever had these issues, right? Just blowing through the torque converter and hitting limiter. And one of the main things that I found was these are actually mechanics. This is an intentional swapping of parts. This is like people who have a 350Z auto and something happens to the transmission. They get a used transmission or a used valve body and they swap it in and they have these issues, right? They report the car's at like 40% throttle. Another thing they mention is that it's actually not timing. It is the throttle body that the car limits. So when the transmission reports that something's wrong, right, if it slips or if it gets hot or whatever, something is outside the parameters, the car will use the throttle to limit power and to save the transmission. So they have a ton of safety strategies to preserve the life of the transmission. And that's really kind of what I was feeling. I'm flooring it and it's going through the gears fine, but it feels slow, and I'm using the wideband and it's verifying that it's much richer. So I kind of had this feeling that maybe it's the TCM. But before I did that, another thing that people have mentioned, this isn't even in the Nissan world, this is like the GM transmission, 4L80, 6L80 guys. They mentioned that when you launch the car hard, that the fluid will slosh in the pan and that the pickup will pick up a bit of air, and that can cause issues. So before I did any of this stuff, I overfilled the transmission by about 3/4 of a quart, and it took it fine, like it felt okay. But the reason that I hadn't been overfilling, the reason why I'd really kind of fine-tuned the fluid to be exactly perfect, is because the low coast shifts with the TCM, with the G1 TCM, the M45 one, they were just insane. Like if you were rolling in traffic and it shifted up to second, it was like teeth chattering, like crazy, way too hard. And realistically, a car shouldn't be doing that in an OEM configuration, right? There's nothing in the transmission other than a shift kit. It shouldn't be shifting like that at that low RPM. So that tells me that it's not just the shift strategies. There's something wrong. And also it didn't solve our problem. So I did a couple digs, and the 1-2 shift would still just nick limiter. It was a little better. It was a little bit better, but it would still nick limiter. And the other symptom was that once it did hit limiter, or if it did shift kind of weird, that the wide open airfield was then rich after that. So it was this balancing act of like, you know, do you want a fast, quick shift, or do you want the throttle open, more power, and a slower shift? And that kind of seemed like the back and forth. So I swapped back to the stock A3 TCM, and you know, it's been like months, almost a year since I've had the G1 in there. And yeah, man, going back from the G1 to the A3, it really kind of illuminated the fact that, yeah, this is not just a different style shifting. There is something wrong with the car when it has the G1. So I did some testing, and sure enough, with the A3, it doesn't hit limiter. The shifts are a little slower, like the way that it kind of limits torque before the shift, and then as it shifts, it has this kind of like, it's hard to explain. We'll go do a hit right now, and I'll show you what the 1-2 sounds like, and you'll kind of hear it. It kind of hangs at the RPM for a second, but realistically, if you also listen to the video, especially the 14.28, when we hit the personal best, the way that it shifts much faster than the A3. There's no doubt about that. But because it hits so hard, the torque limiter kind of like goes the other way. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, I'm gonna do it with sound here. It's gonna be funny, but you know, instead of hitting red line, it would go, and it kind of almost took a second for it to recover from the hard hit. And you know, yeah, it ran a 14.28, and it's never run as fast before, but we made a ton of changes on the car. So I'm thinking that maybe with the 3357, that the G1 TCM wasn't, especially in first gear, wasn't as fast, and that it had time to, you know, manually shift. But in that video, I also hit limiter. I think in the first race we hit limiter. And if that's doing it even like 1 out of 5 times, that's 1 out of 5 passes that are complete throwaway. And that is enough for me to kind of stick with the A3. I'm not going to sell the G1 or give it away or anything. We're going to do more research into those TCMs, because another thing that the 350Z guys mentioned is that there is a dealership, like a consult to level procedure to mate the TCM in the valve body. So on their cars, the valve body actually has a number that correlates to the TCM. So that way you could go buy the TCM and then flash it, and it would work. So, you know, maybe there is a way to get the G1 to work properly, and it doesn't have slam shifts in low coast, and it doesn't hit limiter. So maybe in the future we'll figure that out. But for right now, we're gonna do some testing with the old TCM, because I have a feeling, you know, especially with the way that it hangs revs, like right at redline, that might actually work to our advantage. It's hard for me to tell without doing a proper hit and, you know, putting the draggy on it. But anyways, I just want to make a quick video because I know a lot of people have reached out about that TCM, and I'd feel really bad if you guys are having issues. The other thing was no check engine light. So I've been getting a reoccurring P1720, which is either wheel speed sensor or output speed sensor. And I did mess with the wheel speed sensors. There was some rust and shit on them, but the code would come back pretty much right away. And the code would come when I was in reverse, or, you know, really low, you know, like just pulling up to a parking spot, it would trip the light. So there was something going on there. And I cleared the codes, and neither the P1320 or the P1720 have come back. And going through all of my Facebook messages and, you know, people that I reach out for this stuff, those codes kind of started becoming a reoccurring thing when I swapped the TCM. So maybe, this is total speculation at this point, maybe the G1 TCM has a function in the corresponding, I'll just call it the G1 ECU, even though I probably called something else. The G1 ECU from that 04 M45 might have some sort of input or signal that it's looking for, and that it works okay when it doesn't have that, but then there's a handful of scenarios where it's looking for a certain CAN bus input and it doesn't get that, and then it throws a code. Or that's the reason why it defaults to these like really fast slam shifts. I don't know. This is pure speculation. But the car definitely drives infinitely better. It's crazy. It's crazy how the car shifts better when it has the computer that's actually meant for it. Like, it all seems kind of stupid in retrospect, but you kind of got to go from my perspective of like, you know, we're looking for improvements and we're ignoring the downsides because we want this to work so bad. And yeah, it's just one of these things where, you know, maybe don't mess with the computers. Maybe just leave it as is. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna cut to this article that mentioned the TCM swap and the symptoms that it caused. This is from like a mechanic's perspective, right? So these guys are like, you know, they get a car and it needs a new transmission, so they get a used transmission, they put it in there, and then this happens, right? The shift strategies are all messed up. So I'm gonna cut to that right now, and we're just gonna go quickly through it. Okay, so we got some information. So this is just, you know, it looks like one of those kind of generic websites that has information on cars, but if you actually scroll down, this has some pretty interesting information. So just kind of getting into this part here. So due to the variety of vehicles this transmission finds itself in, there are various style gear shift options as well. The TCM that matches a vehicle's calibration specifications is mounted on the valve body with the exception of first production Infinity models. So I don't know if that refers to like really early stuff like our car, and that other, so basically the 02 to around 05, I believe, or 04 for the G35 will have an external TCM just like ours. After 05, I think even in the half year range of 04, they actually switched to the internal TCM. So the TCM is inside the valve body. So let's just keep scrolling here. So here we go. So this is what I actually found. This is what I was searching for. So whether the wrong planetary system is used or the wrong TCM, gear ratio errors are the immediate consequences. In some cases, shift scheduling is altered to earlier shift points. That's exactly how I would describe the GZ and the G1 TCM, is that the shifts come in really early. Like, there's no hanging around waiting for them. They just come in super fast. It's almost all load based. It's not RPM based. Which, you know, to my credit, it felt good. With the big V8, you want to get into the high gear and just let the torque converter kind of pull you up. You know, with the V6, they don't have that torque, so it's annoying. You're constantly downshifting to get back into it. But anyways, in some cases, shift scheduling is altered to earlier shift points, yet will not shift at wide open throttle until it hits the rev limiter. I mean, that's it. That's literally the exact thing that we're having. Gear ratio errors soon follow. So, you know, if it's never hitting limiter and I'm always rolling into the throttle when I'm street driving, it might not have had that issue for a long time, all right? Until I hit this limiter, and then it starts going down the rabbit hole of all these errors. Again, this is pure speculation on my part, but this part right here, this is what tells me, this little piece right here, I think that the TCM swap was a mistake. I think that I got too greedy. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if that's going to affect your guys' cars as well, right? You might have a 313 stock diff or a 3357, and the ratios feel fine. I don't know. I have no idea. But I know on my car with a 369 and shift kit, it is night and day difference. It's not good. With this transmission having several other issues that can cause gear ratio errors, infrequent mismatched parts, or transmission combinations can sometimes take a shop several days to recover. So yeah, boys, that's pretty much it. That's what's causing this issue, I think. And we're gonna have to do some testing with the stock TCM just to kind of see where it's at. But I'm gonna do a quick hit. I got the GoPro. We'll show the 1-2 shift on the stock TCM and see what it's like. But yeah, I just want to make that video because yeah, I know a lot of guys are looking for this TCM. It's not like it's an expensive part or anything, but I do feel bad for wasting people's time, wasting people's money. So I apologize for that. I should really make a disclaimer more often that, you know, I am new. I am not a mechanic. I'm not a Nissan expert. I'm a guy with a 2002 Q45 that's just trying to hot rod it, right? So it's all good research, but I do feel bad for jumping to conclusions and being like, hey, this is the wonder TCM that will make your transmission better. Yeah, it might. It also might hit limiter and be down on power. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. We'll switch over to the GoPro now and do a quick hit. Okay, looks pretty good to me. So yeah, I took about half a quart of fluid out. When I first checked, the fluid at 65 degrees was about a millimeter low on the dipstick, which is why I thought, oh, well, we can overfill it. If it's a little low, it'll probably be fine. But yeah, overfilling it by 3/4 of a quart did not do anything really. So swap back the stock TCM and took about half a quart out. I'm gonna leave it a little overfilled. I don't think it's a bad thing, especially with the A3. The A3 is so smooth. Like, it is really crazy. Like, I know it seems like so obvious, but it's like, yeah, the right TCM feels better. Like, I just feel so dumb saying it, but like, yeah. The Q45 TCM feels better in the Q45. Big surprise, guys. I'm such an idiot. Like, that feels so good, man. It's hard for you guys to hear it on camera because it's not like a high RPM or anything, but man, the low coast shifts, they feel great. It's almost like this computer's meant for the car. Okay, I'm not even gonna really foot brake it. We're just gonna roll in and then hear the 1-2 shift here. So here we go. Pull this down there. So you can kind of hear the rev hang. I still think that's gonna be better because it goes into second gear at full power. Whereas even with the G1, even when it didn't hit limiter, it would bump into the next gear and you could hear the torque converter kind of take it a little bit. It's hard to explain, but I think the force of banging into the gear upsets the transmission. I don't think it likes it. So we're gonna keep this style, the slower, I couldn't even tell you what it's really called, hanging the RPM kind of. It just kind of sits there for a second, whereas the G1 would go, but this one is, it kind of slips the transmission. That's what I'm looking for. It slips better. That's a better way of describing it. Also the throttle, when it's on throttle, like in gear, it feels stronger. And I can verify that because the wideband, so I filled this thing up with 94 non-ethanol gas, and it was at like 11.4, 11.5. So switching back to this TCM opened the throttle more or gave us more timing. I'm not sure, I'm not 100% which is which, but better. Better in every sense. I looked down at the air fuel briefly, it's around 12.2, which is about, that kind of makes sense, right? It's about a third of a tank with lots of ethanol filled up with non-ethanol. Right where we want it. All right, here we go, boys. Foot brake. So I don't know if that picks up on camera, but yeah, the revs, they hang for a second and then it shifts, but it doesn't hit limiter and it doesn't reduce power afterwards. So we got to go take this to our 8th mile spot, boys, and then we'll find out if this is actually worth it. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. I am sorry if you bought a G1 TCM and you're having issues. I apologize. That's my bad, all right? I'm sorry. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully this thing does like an 8.7 in the 8th. Peace.